The Tiger at the Gate of Autumn. Chapter 1. Roads of Dust and Light. The year was a hinge in history, when bronze still sang beneath the hammer and the spring plow cut neat furrows under a sky of restless omens. North of the Luo River, caravans moved like slow thoughts. On a ridge of lust the color of old parchment, a man in plain hemp walked alone, a travel staff in his hand and a scroll case slung across his back. He was called Shen Tu, though villagers more often called him teacher. Others, less kindly, called him Cloudwalker, because he ate where he could, slept where he found shelter, and let the wind choose his destinations. He taught that wisdom was a lute with many strings, and that strength, if deaf to music, could only beat a drum. On that ridge the wind carried grit and the scent of pine smoke from a distant hamlet. Shen Tu paused, watching how the light on the plain broke into ladders over irrigation channels. He lifted his chin at the sound of hooves. A chariot rattled toward him. 2 ponies, lacquered wheels, driver in lamellar plates. Behind the driver, a young lord stood gripping a dagger axe. Gah! He had the posture of someone taught to be taller than himself. "Make way!" the driver barked. Shen Tu stepped aside, bowing. The lord's eye caught the humble scroll case and lingered with faint displeasure. "Teacher," the young man said, "what use is ink when barbarians test our borders? My tutors tell me that Lu and Qi already skirmish along the sea river." "Ink teaches the hand to draw a map," Shen Tu replied. "Maps teach the chariot where to go. The border is a rumor. The people are real." The young lord snorted. "Soft words butter no millet cakes." The chariot clattered on. Shen Tu gazed after it. He spoke softly, to the wind. "Strength without direction is a river without banks." Then he continued, the staff tapping the road like a slow metronome. Near sunset he reached a village cupped in terraces, bamboo groves leaning like confidential friends. Smoke rose from woks. Children chased a reed hoop. He begged a bowl of noodles and a shed's corner to sleep in, as was his habit. The headman, old Lu, nodded toward the hills. "Keep your prayers handy, teacher. The tiger spirit hunts again. No ordinary beast. A messenger from the mountain itself." Shen Tu's brows knit. "A messenger who eats lambs and frightens widows? Perhaps the mountain is displeased with us," old Lu said, and would say no more. Night came full of cicadas. Shen Tu lay awake, listening to bamboo clack against bamboo. Somewhere far off, a roar lifted, deep enough to shiver the rafters. He sat up and set his staff across his knees. "Some teachers," he muttered, "arrive with teeth." Chapter 2. The Tiger in Bamboo. Dawn broke with a pall of mist on the paddies. Footprints the size of platters led from the treeline to the goat pens, then vanished as if a giant brush erased them. Shen Tu crouched to study the churned earth. A dozen villagers watched, whispering. "Great tiger," a woman said, making a sign. "By who, the white one? He judges the west and the metal and the autumn. Have we angered the season?" "Everything angers autumn," old Lu said dryly. "Its work is to take." Shen Tu traced the print with a forefinger. The claws had scored the soil, but not randomly. The arcs seemed deliberate. He straightened, eyes narrowing toward the bamboo. "I will speak with him," he said. Gasps, as if he had promised to chat with thunder. "Teacher." "Someone must," Shen Tu said. "If he is only a beast, we will learn his hunger. If a spirit, we will learn our fault." He entered the grove, the air cooler under the green clatter. The light broke into coins. After 50 paces the world thinned, the way it does when a flute finds a high note you can barely hear. The trunks leaned in. He smelled crushed leaves, river stone, old copper. "Great one," Shen Tu called, pitching his voice as he would to a wary student. "Here is a fool who loves questions." Silence. Then the syllable of a growl rolled like a millstone. The bamboo trembled. A shape detached from shade. The tiger spirit was not merely large. He was proportioned like a story told at winter fires. Shoulders like waves, eyes like dusk on bronze, whiskers tipped in white as if snow had chosen him first. Stripes banded him with the geometry of fate. When he breathed, the grove leaned. You have the smell of ink, said a voice. Not with the air but in Shen Tu's bones. Shen Tu bowed. Ink stains, but it does not wound. I am Shen Tuesday. Names are cords, the tiger rumbled. They tug the world. Why tug me? Because you trespass where widows keep goats. The tiger's lips peeled from teeth at the windows of winter. They trespass where mountain keeps silence. Shen Tu inclined his head. Then the mountain and the widow should speak. The tiger circled him, tail swaying like a metronome set to an old law. You are brave for a man who eats millet, or you have never learned fear. I have learned fear many times, Shen Tu said. It keeps a man from wearing other men as shoes. But I have also learned to speak while afraid. Words are thin armor. They are also bridges. The tiger yawned, a cavern lit with ivory. You talk like water. Water wears stone. And claws? Shen Tu said gently. Cannot mend fences. A pause. Then the tiger's ears twitched. The village cut a trench in the lower grove. They broke the spring's lip. The water that used to sing to the mountain now runs into their stew. The mountain sends me to remind them whose throat they've slit. Shen Tu's heart pinched. He pictured terraces greedy for moisture, a short drought, a quick solution with a spade. The villagers had diverted a rivulet. In the arithmetic of the hill, that was theft. I will return, he said. Give me 3 days. If I mend the throat you spoke of, will you let the goats fatten and the children sleep? If the song returns, the tiger said, I will hunt where old law allows. If it does not, I will unteach them sleep. He flowed back into the clatter and was gone. Chapter 3. The Throat of Water. Shen Tu returned to the village with mud on his hems and a thought in his eye. He gathered the headman and a dozen hands. They climbed to the lower grove, where a raw trench chewed at the hill's foot. Bamboo stalks leaned over it like mourners. The redirected water burbled into a new channel that gleamed like a silver theft. 3 weeks ago, old Lu confessed. The spring thinned. We argued. Some said pray. Others said dig. Hungry men listened to shovels. Shen Tu knelt, pressing his palm to the damp lip of the old spring. The earth heals slowly. We are impatient physicians. He plunged his staff into the trench, levered loose a stone, then another. Men joined him. They built, with mud and rock and woven reed, a rough weir that let water trickle back into the spring's mouth while leaving enough for the fields. Share, Shen Tu said, voice like a small bell. Let the mountain drink before we do. At dusk, the old channel whispered again. Frogs tested their song. A chorus of insects tuned itself to the old key. Shen Tu stood still until tears surprised him. Nature returning to itself is a kind of forgiveness. That night he dreamed of lacquered chariots and bronze bells. He woke before dawn and went alone to the grove. The tiger stepped from shadow, head low, ears keen. The song returns, the spirit conceded. For now, nothing is forever, Shen Tu said. But while we remember to listen, we may belong. The tiger's eyes narrowed. You speak as if you could bind men's hands with sentences. Not bind, invite. He smiled a little. But sometimes a sentence needs a spear standing behind it. The tiger's whiskers twitched. There it is. Strength. You reject it with one paw, pet it with the other. Strength has its place, Shen Tu said. It holds the door while wisdom learns the lock. He tapped his staff on loam. Will you leave them in peace? Until their forgetfulness wakes me, the tiger said. And it will. He faded like dusk. Shen Tu exhaled. Then I will keep walking, he murmured. And keep reminding. Chapter 4, 3 students and a drum. The road east unfurled like a silk belt. Word of the tiger spread quicker than carts. In a market town under a city-state's flags, 3 youths approached Shen Tu where he sat eating buckwheat cakes. The first had shoulders like stacked bricks and a boxer's ears. Master, he said, teach me to break a spear with my palm. The second had eyes like needles. Teach me to win debates at court and the stipends of dukes. The third wore a patched robe and carried a bamboo flute. Teach me to hear what rivers say, so I can translate for the deaf. Shen Tu wiped his hands and smiled. Very well. What are your names? Han Bo, said the strong one. Jian, said the clever one. Mei Lin, said the third, and her flute's tassel shook. Shen Tu blinked, amused at his assumption. He had taken Mei Lin for a boy, but her gaze was level and patient. Walk with me, he said. They followed him out along the hedgerows. Sparrows threshed the air. A drum thudded at the town gate, a rhythm of warning. Riders galloped past with spears upright. A militia captain shouted hoarsely, "Bandits!" From the north slope, Shen Tu and his new disciples saw smoke smear the horizon. Han Bo's jaw set. "Master, go," Shen Tu said gently. "Strength has been invited." He put a hand on the young man's arm. "But keep your heart wide, or power will pour out of it like a wine jar with a cracked base." They ran toward the gate together. The north slope was already a confusion of yells, dust, and flashing bronze. Bandits on shaggy ponies wheeled amid carts. Villagers swung hoes as if their crops were enemies. The militia line bent like a reed in storm. "Form on me!" the captain bellowed, raising his dagger axe. "Shields!" Han Bo leaped to the front with a laugh that was half fear, half hunger. He met the first pony head-on, planted his feet, and seized the rider's spear shaft. Muscles stood like ropes in his arms. He wrenched and twisted. The rider tumbled. "Good," Shen Tu said under his breath. "Hold without hatred." He turned to Ji and "You wanted debates. Go argue with chaos." Jian swallowed. Then he cupped hands to mouth. "Fire! Fire at the bandit's rear!" he shouted toward the bandit flank. The words bounced from hill to hill. Half a dozen mounted thieves turned in alarm, and saw smoke they themselves had kindled to frighten farmers. But in a fight, seeing a thing named is seeing it afresh. They wheeled further, confused, fracturing their line. "Names move men," Shen Tu said. Mei Lin had already run to a toppled cart where a boy lay crying under a spilled crate of gourds. She levered the slats with her flute, wedged her small shoulder beneath, and hissed, "Push!" The boy wriggled free. "Run!" she told him, and he ran, her flute in his hands like a baton she had passed. Shen Tu stepped into the melee where a bandit swung a gun at an old farmer. He slid under the hooked blade and tapped the bandit's inner wrist with his staff. Not a great blow, barely a kiss of wood on tendon, but it struck exactly the nerve that makes a grasp open. The gun clattered. The old farmer's hoe found its purpose. The bandits, disoriented by their own smoke and by the militia's sudden coherence, pulled away, melting into the gullies. A ragged cheer went up. Han Bo panted, arms bleeding in 3 places. "I broke a spear," he said, awed. "You broke a moment," Shen Tu said. "Spears are easy." Jian flushed. "My lie. Your sentence," Shen Tu corrected. "Call a thing by its name and it becomes itself more sharply. That cuts both ways." Mei Lin stood very still, listening as if the smoke spoke. "The North Gully," she said. "They'll circle there to raid again tonight." The militia captain overheard. "How do you know?" Mei Lin tilted her head. "Because that's where the wind carries ash. And because men do the same clever things over and over, which makes them stupid." The captain stared, then barked a laugh. "We'll watch the gully." He bowed to Shen Tu's teacher, gratitude. Shen Tu returned the bow. "Feed your men before they eat themselves," he advised. Chapter 5. Linzi, City of Bells. The road led the 4 of them to Linzi, capital of the state of Qi, where the bronze bells of the music bureau hung in ordered rows and scholars quarreled with the appetite of wolves. Here, Shen Tu intended to test Ji An's cleverness and temper Han Bo's strength with ritual. Mei Lin he hoped to place with a court musician who might coax her song into discipline. But a court has its own weather, and it stormed that week. A faction at Linzi sought to train an army of chariots and archers to crush neighboring Lu. Another faction wanted to purchase diplomats and scribes to slowly capture Lu's laws and customs instead. The Duke of Qi wavered. Shen Tu was summoned to a public debate in the Hall of Audience, that shallow theater where reputations are made and mislaid. He entered bareheaded, staff in hand. The floor's tiles were cool. The air smelled of ink and combed hair. Teacher Shen Tu, the Duke said, you tame tigers with irrigation. Perhaps you can tame my ministers. They argue. Strength versus wisdom. Which purchases safety? Shen Tu bowed. Your grace. Both purchase it and both waste it. A buzz ran around the hall. The war minister, armored even indoors, smiled a little. Waste? A chariot wastes nothing. A chariot wastes grain for horse fodder and bronze for axles, Shen Tu said mildly. A scroll wastes bamboo and a scribe's youth. The question is not whether you waste, but what you buy with the waste. A nation is a shop. Will you stock more spears than plows? The war minister sneered. Without spears, you will have no plows. And without plows, Shen Tu said, you will have no men to feed to spears. Laughter, but thin the laughter of teeth. Jian watched, bright-eyed, memorizing the angles of sentences. The music master sighed long through his nose. Mei Lin stared at the bells. Let us not be coy, the war minister said. Lu disrespects us. Their envoys make small jokes at our expense. Their farmers graze across our stones. We must strike, and strike now, before Chu or Jean decide to chew us both. Strike, Shen Tu said, is a word for hammers. The world is not only nails. He looked to the Duke. Your grace, win Lu's heart and you have their border. Break their wall and you inherit their hungry children. The Duke frowned. Hearts are dearer than walls. Then learn the price. Shen Tu gestured to Ji, and my student will propose 3 ways to spend less blood than ink and still gain the field. Jian swallowed, then stepped forward. He listed, crisp and quick. First, send seeds and irrigation tools, not soldiers, to Lu's poorest villages. Stamp them with cheese seal. When harvests rise, the peasants will bless Qi, and their lords will have to explain why their enemies feed them. Second, marry a minor princess of Qi to a middle lord of Lu, not a high one, for that breeds suspicion, and send with her musicians and carpenters. The lord becomes your debtor and fashions Qi's carpentry in his halls. Third, hold a competition of bows at the border and invite Lu's archers. Give the best Lu archer a prize finer than the best Qi archers. The powerful in Lu will argue about honor while their people come and go across a gentler frontier. Silence, then murmurs. The Duke's fingers tapped his armrest, calculating. The war minister's jaw worked. And if Lu takes our gifts and still spits in the bowl? He growled. Han Bo couldn't help himself. Then we break their teeth, he said cheerfully. Shen Tu bowed to both. There. Wisdom proposes, strength disposes. Neither alone will keep a roof in wind. The Duke laughed, finally and fully. You twist tongues into ropes, teacher. Very well. We will try your seeds and songs before spears. He stood. Tonight you dine at my table. That night, Mei Lin played a melody on the palace terrace that made even the war minister's shoulders loosen. The bells answered her in bronze syllables. Shen Tu looked up at the North Star and wondered when it had seemed closer. Ji flirted dangerously with a court scribe. Han Bo ate like a siege. And far away, in a bamboo grove, a spirit watched the moon edge into the mouth of night. Chapter 6. Autumn's Messenger. The tiger returned to Shen Tu as the leaves began to bronze. He appeared not in bamboo but on a lonely hill in the country of Lu, where the teacher had gone to visit a school that taught children to bow to ancestors and to sweep floors as carefully as they recited the odes. Shen Tu sensed him before he saw him. A pressure, a gravity, as if an invisible mountain had grown a heartbeat. He dismissed his pupils and walked to the ridge, where the grass bent from a wind that had not yet arrived. You are famous, ink-bearer, the tiger said without heat. Courts applaud you. Dukes use you. Lamps burn the moths that love them, Shen Tu said. I try to visit where the smoke is kinder. Your words build ladders for soft men to climb power. Power is a river, Shen Tu said. Everyone bathes. Some drown. My job is to teach swimming. The tiger snorted. You say river as if it forgives. The mountain does not. It remembers every cut. He paced. Lu digs canals. Qi trains archers. Chu fattens. Jean dreams of swallowing. All of you hum while you sharpen. Then judge us kindly, Shen Tu said softly. We are young beasts. There was a sound behind him, feet on earth, not paws. A squad of armed men approached, spears bright, a banner flapping with a stylized tiger. Their captain's face was taut with righteousness. In the Duke's name, the captain said, we hunt a demon plaguing our flocks. Teacher, step aside. Shen Tu glanced between spirit and men. No demon here, he said quietly. Only a debt collector. Stand aside. The captain repeated, knuckles white. The tiger's tail lashed once. Shall I eat them to teach them humility? He asked in the place of bones. Only if you wish to learn arrows, Shen Tu murmured, then raised his voice. Captain, hear me. This one came because spring water was stolen near Luo. The debt was paid. He hunts now within old bounds. The captain's mouth flattened. Spirits bargain with the clever and devour the simple. If we show mercy, they return stronger. A lesson fits the student, Shen Tu said. Strike this one and you will make 5 more. Men who put on masks and eat sheep to prove their courage. Enough! The captain lowered his spear. Men! Wait! Shen Tu said, stepping forward. He planted his staff in the ground. Let me prove a small theorem. If I move the tiger 1 step with words, you leave. If I fail, I help you fight. The captain hesitated, then spat. You are mad, old man. Very well. Move your god 1 step. Shen Tu bowed to the tiger. Great one. Would you honor us by taking 1 step to your left? The tiger blinked. Why? Because the wind there carries the smell of wild boar? Shen Tu said mildly, and indeed the breeze, shifting, brought a musk. And because I ask with respect, which is a rare spice. The tiger cocked his head and patted 1 step left. Done. Shen Tu turned to the captain. Theorem proven. The captain flushed scarlet. You make sport of us. You made sport of yourselves? Shen Tu said gently. By making a vow without sense. Keep your men for real demons. This one is a boundary stone. Unpleasant to move but useful to measure against. The captain glared. Then, perhaps remembering harvest duty, he jerked his head. Back to the road, he snapped. They left, muttering. The tiger huffed something like laughter. You tricked him with an easy step. I tricked no one, Shen Tu said. I asked politely, and what if I had refused? Then I would have helped them fight, Shen Tu said. Against me? Against ignorance. Sometimes it wears whiskers. The tiger's eyes narrowed. You insult evenly. I begin to understand why lords tolerate you. He flicked an ear. Be ready. Autumn fattens men's appetites. When frost laces the fields, the wolves inside your duke's wake and look for something warm to bite. Chapter 7. The Siege of the Harvest Moon. The wolves woke on time. A rumor. A duke's cousin slapped by a Lu tax collector. A caravan shortwayed. Grew teeth. Before any song could cool it, Chi's war minister had his chariots at the border and Lu's archers lined the dike like crows on a wall. Shen Tu arrived too late to prevent the first arrows from trading names. Men fell. The soil drank. The sun went on doing its golden stretches. Han Bo pulled a dying soldier behind a cart, breath a rasp. Master, he said hoarsely. Words don't catch arrows. No, Shen Tu said, binding the man's wound with strips of his robe. But they can redirect them. By dusk, both sides had drawn back to lick wounds and plan. The war minister of Chi summoned Shen Tuesday, so, he said, bright with the joy of having numbers. Strategy. Tell me where to strike. At the hunger, Shen Tu said. The minister frowned. Speak like a man. Make them come to you hungry, Shen Tu said. Burn nothing. Kill no ox. Guard the granaries like the duke's daughters. Harvest under guard with kindness. Share grain with Lu villages nearest the border. Make Lu's lords explain to their men why Chi feeds them while their own men count arrows. The minister's smile soured. Kindness is expensive. So is burying sons, Shen Tu said. The minister rubbed his jaw, thinking like a man who had recently learned counting. We will hold. And if Lu raids, then we will show their raids against your granaries to their own mothers, Shen Tu said. Hire every poet in Linzi to sing of stolen grain. Hire the worst poets, their songs last. The minister snorted despite himself. Very well, we will try your poems. Meanwhile, we place our chariots where your tiger would least enjoy them. He placed them at the shallow ford where the sea river split around a gravel bar. Lu attacked at dawn 2 days later, arrow clouds like migrating birds. Chi's chariots surged to the ford, wheels hissing in the shallows. Han Bo leaped onto a cart, dragging 2 archers with him as the axle creaked. "Hold, you salted fish!" he yelled at the horses, laughing wild because fear wanted him silent. Lu's front line crashed against Chi's shields with the sound of dropped kettles. Jian ran along the rear ranks, shouting adjustments. Left, 2 paces. Right, 3. He had never loved geometry until each step meant lungs saved or punctured. Mei Lin, shoved by a current of bodies, found herself at the edge of the ford, where wounded men slipped toward the deeper pool. She threw herself flat and made of her whole body a shelf, catching wrists, shouting, "Breathe with me," until her voice went raw. She had tied her flute to her belt with a red cord. It bumped her hip like a heartbeat. At the battle's hinge, Shen Tu went looking for the one place where sentences could still stretch. He found a Lu chariot stuck in gravel, horses screaming, axles rocking. A boy of a driver sobbed, pulling at the reins until his palms bled. Shen Tu set his shoulder to the wheel. "Push when I say so," he told the boy. "Not before, not after." Aye. 3 breaths, Shen Tu said. "Still your body. It is a skittish ox. Calm it." The boy stared, then obeyed. They heaved together on the 3rd breath, and the wheel leaped onto packed sand. The chariot lurched free. "Go home," Shen Tu panted, and the boy did, cheeks streaming. By noon, Chi held the ford. Lu withdrew in a coil of bitter dust. Dead men misunderstood their last dreams. The war minister slapped Shen Tu's back hard enough to jolt the old teacher's teeth. "Your kind harvests bought us a battle," he said grudgingly. "We will send grain to the border villages. For now. For always," Shen Tu murmured. But he didn't press his luck. That night, as cooking smoke gilded the camp and men told the lies battles require, Shen Tu climbed the gravel bar alone. The tiger waited, outlined against a moon fat as a promise. "You fed them and fought them," the spirit said. "You sing to both sides of your mouth." "I have 2 hands, Shen Tu said. "One to hold the spear, one to hold the bowl. A nation with 1 hand only is a cripple." "Words," the tiger said, but his tone had softened. "Be quick with your wisdom. Winter noses the door." Chapter 8. The Gate of Autumn. Winter arrived with a clean knife. Frost wrote ideograms on every leaf. On the first morning that breath steamed like a horse, a messenger from Linzi found Shen Tu at a border shrine where he was teaching Mei Lin to tune her flute to the wind. "The Duke summons you," the messenger said, eyes wide. "News runs like fire. The tiger has killed a general." Shen Tu stood very still. "Which general?" "General Wei, the war minister," the messenger said. "He tracked the tiger to a ravine. They say he wounded it. They say it sprang over 10 men's heads and tore his throat. They say many things." Mei Lin gripped her flute as if it might splinter in sympathy. "Master!" "Pack," Shen Tu said. They reached the ravine by dusk. The snow there was churned, stained, poem of violence erased by wind and rewritten by wind. 3 dead spearmen lay under pines. Ravens had already graded their bravery and found it adequate. Shen Tu knelt by a print where the tiger had landed. Blood, bright as lacquer, dotted the pad marks, then faded. He touched the snow, then his tongue. "Old blood," he murmured. "Not fatal. He lives." A surviving corporal approached, face gray. "Teacher, the general died well." "No one dies well," Shen Tu said, perhaps more sharply than he intended. He softened his voice. "Did the tiger attack first?" The corporal's eyes flickered. "We attacked first. The general called it justice." Justice without listening is revenge dressed in silk, Shen Tu said. He stood. Where did he go? North, toward the autumn gate, the man said, pointing to a notch where the ridge cut the sky. They climbed. The path narrowed. Pine sap scented the air like medicine. In the notch, at the gate of autumn where wind tunnels and scours, Shen Tu found him. The tiger spirit, lying on a ledge of red stone, sides heaving with a slow furnace. Snow on his flanks steamed to water and ran in delicate chains. Shen Tu approached alone, palms open. Great one, you brought students to a funeral? The tiger asked, eyes half closed. Funerals are lessons, Shen Tu said. So are births. The tiger's whiskers twitched. Your general threw hooks of iron into my skin. I removed some. Some remain. They itch with men. Hooks itch with guilt, Shen Tu said. On both sides. He hunted me to make himself taller, the tiger said. He died his original height. Men who stand on graves blow their knees, Shen Tu said. He sat slowly on a cold stone and folded his robe against the sting. Listen, you are a boundary and a law, but your law must speak. Otherwise, it becomes only hunger. The villages fed the spring. The dukes fed their pride. This is the ledger, 2 wrongs corrected, 1 wrong committed. We must balance the page. You would bleed me in place of the general? The tiger asked, amused. I would bleed my pride, Shen Tu said, and they must bleed theirs. Lu must build a shrine to your mountain with real carpenters and real prayers. Chi must declare a season when hunting ceases and the poor are fed first. And you must allow the shepherd boys to sing in the lower grove without waking to frighten them, unless their fathers bore trees or dig channels across the spring's throat again. You tax me with mercy, the tiger said. Why? Because mercy is a tax that raises interest in the future, Shen Tu said. Silence lasted 3 breaths longer than comfort. Then the tiger uncurled and stood. Up close, his size took Shen Tu's older breath away. He bowed, surprising himself at the depth of it. Very well, the tiger said at last. I tire of funerals that teach nothing. Let your dukes carve their shrines. Let the boys sing. Let the hunters sleep 1 moon in 6. If they forget again, they will, Shen Tu said, and I will remember for them. You cannot walk every road, the tiger said kindly. Even autumn ends somewhere. Then let my students walk some, Shen Tu said, glancing back to where Han Bo and Ji and kept respectful distance, and Mei Lin's breath ghosted the air with a white flute. The tiger lowered his heavy head until his eyes were level with Shen Tu's. You are not strong, he said, and yet things move when you speak. Wind is not strong, Shen Tu said, and yet mountains wear thinner robes each year. The tiger's mouth opened, and for a fleeting, shocking blink Shen Tu thought he would be bitten in half. Instead, the spirit's tongue rasped once across Shen Tu's brow, a touch equal parts blessing and insult. Then he turned and flowed toward the notch, a slow river of stripes. At the ridge line, he paused and looked back. Inkbearer, he said, when you are gone, what remains? Songs, Shen Tu said, and the way the spring sounds when we've stopped stealing from it. The tiger dipped his head once and was gone into the grizzled trees. Chapter 9, What the River Wrote. Chi kept its pledge longer than cynics bet. The shrine at the lower grove rose with mortise and tenon joints that creaked like old men's knees. Youths hung bells that sounded like small rain. A new custom spread from Linzi like the smell of sesame. 1 month in 6, no hunting. Granaries opened to the poor before armies took their share. Officials grumbled at the expense and then smiled when banditry dropped like frost-burned leaves. Lu, to save face, declared a festival of wells. Every spring cleaned, every channel blessed with a little wine. Ji and returned from court with ink on his cuffs and a wife who could copy 3 pages of Zhou without smearing a stroke. Han Bo opened a school of fists beside a mill and taught boys to punch without rage. A clenched hand, he told them, is just a crowded palm. Let things in. Mei Lin traveled with Shen Tu, playing at village altars and in market squares. Old women wiped their eyes and said the flute remembered their daughters. Hard men looked away and pretended to cough. Once, on the luo, a crane landed near her and cocked its head until she finished. then lifted into the air like a poem deciding to be a bird again. As for Shen Tu, he aged, as men do who walk and think. Lines came, sharp as calligraphy. His legs stiffened in cold. He ate more ginger. He watched the great states jostle like ox carts. He watched a child he'd taught to count teeth grow into a scribe who could count taxes and still sleep. He watched a spring stay clear 3 years, then silten one autumn and clear again after boys with spades sang a work song he had taught them. Sometimes, in a bamboo grove, he would stop mid-stride and feel a mountain watching him. He would bow even if he could not see its whiskers. Chapter 10. The Quiet Gate. Years later, at a ford where reeds make the wind write secrets no one bothers to read, Shen Tu sat with Mei Lin and his 2 students in middle age. Han Bo's hands were scarred maps. Jian's eyes squinted as if sentences were far away and he strained to see them. Mei Lin's flute had a new chip she called a second mouth. "Master," Jian said, "I argued today with a magistrate who insists that order is a cudgel and mercy an extravagance. He says men are bowls. Fill them with law and they will not slosh." "Bowls crack," Shen Tu said, "and cudgels break bowls. Better to make men into hands." Han Bo chuckled. "Your metaphors duel each other like cocks." "They keep fit," Shen Tu said. Mei Lin studied his face. "You are tired." "I am a worn shoe that still fits," Shen Tu said. "But yes, some roads prefer younger soles." The river said its lifelong sentence. "Go on." A hawk wrote a curve under a cloud. Shen Tu reached into his scroll case and drew out not a scroll but a small brush and a thin slate. He wrote 4 characters slowly, letting his wrist remember youth, wisdom, and strength. 2 dragons sharing a pearl," he said. "When one claws, the pearl rolls away." Han Bo rubbed his beard. "Master, do you ever wish you had been a general? The men would have followed you." "I was a general," Shen Tu said. "My battlefield was the space between ears. Harder ground than plain or hill." Jian leaned back. "Do you ever regret not having more power?" Shen Tu looked at the reeds, where wind did a careful job of combing. "Power is a wonderful servant. It brings tea and lifts stones. As a master it snores and steals. I have had as much of it as I can keep awake under." Mei Lin placed her flute across her knees. "And the tiger?" Shen Tu smiled. "He visits when things grow too neat. He is autumn at the gate. He rattles it to test whether rust or duty holds the hinges. He breathed in and let it go. When I am gone, he will visit you." Mei Lin's eyes widened. "Me? You hear water," Shen Tu said. "He respects that." Han Bo thumped his chest. "I respect meat." "Then do not offer him yours," Shen Tu said. And they laughed together under a small moon that had not yet learned to be bright. That night, Shen Tu dreamed of the lower grove. Children lay on their backs with mouths open to catch the story of stars. An old woman scolded them for swallowing heaven in pieces. The spring sang because no one had put a hand to its throat. Somewhere in the bamboo, something large yawned without malice. He woke before dawn. The world had paused to listen to itself. He wrote one more sentence on the slate and left it under a stone. When his students woke, they found him gone. His staff leaning against the ford stone, as if waiting for a hand that had merely stepped away to drink. Mei Lin lifted the slate. It said, "Bend first, then teach bending. Feed first, then teach feeding. Listen first, then teach speech." They sat in silence, letting the river finish a sentence. Then they stood and began the day's walking. Moral: strength without wisdom is a storm. It passes and leaves wreckage. Wisdom without strength is a lantern in wind. It flickers and helps no one cut a path. The way that endures marries both. A hand that can hold a spear and a bowl. A voice that can command and console. A heart that can endure autumn and still plant spring. Note on history and invention. This tale is partly fictional, partly rooted in history. Names and events are invented, yet the setting reflects the Zhou dynasty's world. Vassal states like Qi and Lu, bronze weapons such as the ge, dagger axe, chariots, music bureaus with graduated bells, irrigation terraces, and philosophical debates about ritual, law, and virtue. The tiger spirit draws on Chinese mythic imagery, the white tiger of the West, autumn, and metal. The story's purpose is to offer a vivid journey through time, a lyrical, heroic walk along Zhou roads, and to invite readers to feel an older world's breath while reflecting on a lesson as fresh as the next season.